Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we will reassure you the football is fixable. All right, sis.
All right, Dan.
All right, James.
Yeah, not too bad. Going very North London today. You know,
Yeah, there's a purpose for it.
Yeah, there is a purpose. That was a real North London accent there, wasn't it, Dan?
Yes, it was. It was. I recognised it as if you were near me in my ends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. I get your approval being you're sort of Londoner-ish, aren't you?
Well, I mean, the last time I heard you try and do a London accent, you did sound like you were from New York. So,
as anyone that knows James, he's terrible at accents.
Yeah, actually, James, just so that people can understand, can you please give us your best Cockney juice and butter, please?
Juice and butter. Gonna put out the juice and butter.
Yeah,
See, that's good Cockney, that, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah.
Dan thought that sounded like some sort of American, you know, those old American detectives or whatever it is.
When he first,
see,
yeah, like that.
Yeah.
So, I just remember the first time he said it, and all I could think of was like a PI in like a black and white film. Juice and butter, see? Literally,
I'm gonna blow this case wide
all
open.
I could hear.
Tommy, God.
What's the other one you like to do? Oh yeah, he got his name in the papers. See?
Oh yeah. It's just.
Oh wow!
Basically, Ray Parlour said he'll get his name in the papers in the morning, and I tried to do the impression of Ray, legendary Ray Parlour, invincible, and he'll get his name in the papers.
Yeah.
So I said that, and Dan said, "You're being that American detective again."
Yeah, Ray Parlour is just a PI from New York.
He's been in disguise this whole time. So yeah, it's this week, guys. It's a big one. It's possibly the biggest challenge we've ever had since we've started fixing football.
Potentially for you, anyway. Yeah.
I mean, it's necessary, isn't it? For the sake of football, it's just what a challenge we've got in front of us. So we're going to be looking. It's
definitely the biggest problem I know of. So,
and that's even bigger than Man United. So that's saying something.
Yeah.
We've got generational problem on our hands, and that is we are here to fix Tottenham Hotspur. But first, I've got some news. It's been quite an eventful week, chaps, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Shall I go first, considering I'm the leader of this podcast?
Dan, have you voted for this?
Yeah.
No, Dan is second in command, understands.
Oh yeah, he's your like co-pilot, isn't he?
Well,
yeah, exactly. Peas in the pod again.
I'm new in. I'm barely allowed an opinion, so
You're allowed an opinion. It's just we sometimes just edit you out.
We just don't listen to it.
No, so the first thing I want to talk about is Benty and Goldstein on TalkSport. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't know who Benty or Goldstein are. It doesn't matter if you don't know what TalkSport is. He was talking about the all-time 11 of his choice. He was just picking the actual formation, goalkeeper. I think he did 4-3-3 from memory. And it doesn't even matter the players he chose either. What matters, what I want to bring up, is his reasoning for each of the players he chose. He chose players like Casillas, Carlos, like Roberto Carlos, Cafu, Sergio Busquets, Ronaldinho, Zidane, Messi. A lot of the players people would agree with, disagree with, doesn't matter. But there was almost no explanation of what these players actually had as attributes.
Yeah, what made them great players.
Yeah, all that he said was he basically read out how many times they played for a certain team or national team, how many trophies they won, Ballon d'Ors.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it? He listed out. He said Iker Casillas first of all, and he was like he played 100 and something times for Spain. He won this, he won that.
Yeah.
He was at Real Madrid for 16 years. Didn't mention a single thing about why Casillas is in his mind the best goalkeeper.
Yeah, I do actually agree with you on this. As soon as you arrived to the studio,
yeah,
and you were so like, I've got to show you this video. I'm absolutely furious with it. Look at this. I don't have anything, against his opinion. It's absolutely fine. But why has he just used trophies?
Yeah,
like it just doesn't make. And I have to. I don't have to, but I do agree. with you.
I think you have to because to be honest,
we do have to, James. But no one's supposed to know that.
Yeah, otherwise I edit you out. I've told you.
Right.
But yeah, going by his judgments, but by the reasoning, I suppose, that means he should have chosen Dani Carvajal or Dani Alves on top of of Cafu. He should have, he shouldn't have chosen R9, even though he's my favourite player of all time, and he should rightly be in a all-time 11 for me.
But not because of the trophies he won, or didn't win in some cases.
Yeah, he said he's won 2 World Cups, so should be in there. But to be honest, the first World Cup, he was 17 and didn't play a single game. So I would say that he's only won 1 World Cup, really.
Yeah.
And he'd never won a Champions League. And that was one of the main reasons why Benty was picking players, because they won Champions Leagues. So actually, he shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, he contradicted his own methodology, really.
Basically, he should have only chosen the Barcelona and Real Madrid players from the last 15 years.
Because they won everything over everyone else. Yeah,
so it was just ridiculous. He chose Ronaldinho and yet didn't say a single thing about Ronaldinho's attributes.
No, what made him a great player? Was it how fun he was to watch and the skill level? He was so skillful.
Yeah.
He did talk a bit, like I think you might mention about Zidane. He
mentioned a few things.
He said a couple of things. So, he scored important goals in big games.
Yeah.
He was very silky and attractive to see playing football. He's such a beautiful player to watch. But that was one of the rare things he actually said. Was like, that's actually some of the attributes.
That's the thing. And by then, we were so starved of any information that we were kind of like, he's finally said stuff. But actually, he didn't say a lot about Zidane either. It was just those few things.
That's the best we had from him. But it wasn't really any real detail or anything. And this is it. This was some of our motivation, wasn't it, for setting up this podcast?
The very first episode of the podcast was about this, wasn't it?
Fixing trophies. Yeah, people keep using trophies. It's like, and I always bring up Mark Albright. Got nothing against him. He was a hard-working, he was a good player. And he won the Premier League with Leicester. So does that make him a better player than Steven Gerrard, who never won the Premier League?
Danny Drinkwater. He's a better midfielder than Gerrard, isn't he, in the Prem?
Yeah, exactly. It's just people keep
Scott
using
Carson,
stats
Scott
and trophies.
Carson, the greatest goalkeeper.
Exactly.
Greatest goalkeeper
Scott
of all
Carson,
time.
Exactly.
How much has he won? Is he the 3rd keeper at City?
Yeah, he would be. Yeah.
So all these trophies City has won, technically his name's on those trophies.
Yeah.
He's got medals for all those things. So that's what I mean. Yeah. Trophies are such a poor, lazy measure, aren't they?
That's why we said in that very first episode of the podcast, we made a distinction that teams, clubs win the trophies, the players don't.
No.
The players win a medal.
Yeah, and they get acknowledged, but it's the club that actually wins it.
Manchester City didn't win the Premier League. The Manchester City players didn't win the Premier League.
The club did.
The club did, yeah. But then everyone keeps on saying, Haaland's the best in the world because he won a Premier League.
Or he's won a treble or what. And I mean, the way to remember that is on the trophy, player names don't get written down. Yeah. It's the club. It's the team name.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. Do you agree with that one, Dan?
Yeah. Well, there's also really obvious, Harry Kane. So what? By this measure, what Harry Kane would be like. I mean, there must be a good 20 strikers in the history of football that have got more trophies than Harry Kane. So he wouldn't be in top 30 strikers by that if you go on trophies won, because he's not won a single one.
That's the thing. If Benty made all-time best English strikers in the Prem, Harry Kane probably wouldn't be chosen by him because he hasn't qualified because he hasn't won any trophy. Yeah.
So I didn't mean to get any satisfaction from hearing myself say that. In other news, Dan, Man United are at it again.
At what again?
So, apparently you're letting even more people go, making them redundant. Apparently, I saw a headline the other day.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Your club, it really is going to the gutter, isn't it?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think the ones leaving are probably being done a favour. Let's be honest. It's like, get out of the...
So you're going to say something different. The ones that are going are really just holding us back. Yeah. No, you needed to let Enid go.
Give them the redundancy so they can leave and still have some kind of pay involved, and then they can go find themselves some jobs and get out of what is a horrendously toxic situation over there. It's horrendous.
It is, but it's nasty, isn't it? It really does feel... I mean, we're on the outside, but it seems really like a club that we were growing up in. Man United were the biggest club in England at the time because of the Premier League, and they were the flagship club, winning the majority of the league titles and things. And you just see them now.
The thing is, the money they're trying to save, these aren't like massive salaries. These are like people I would imagine would be on somewhere between 20 and 30 grand a year or something. So it's not really, in the grand scheme of things, saving mass amounts. It's like holding back that £10,000 a quarter or whatever it was to a charity. Like, what is that money to United? Like, honestly, it's a drop in the ocean considering what our interest payments are, something like 30 or 40 million pounds a year just on debt. Do you know what though? I'll tell you what, the people who I would actually quite like to see gone is the many PR members of staff that club must have, because you hear this is just absolute like roller coaster of 1 minute. It's like through the January transfer window, for example, came to the end of the window. Oh, we're going to focus on the summer, and everyone knew it was total nonsense, and it was just some PR story that came out. And lo and behold, 2 days later, after the window closes, oh, we might not have a lot of money for the summer transfer window. Oh, it's honestly, it's just ridiculous. Like, all the money's just spent on PR and like social media, like stories to just try and keep people happy, but. I think there's going to be some protests soon as well. Actually, I think there are actually being some organised. I think it's
right. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It is getting to boiling point.
It is quite sad. Especially you were talking about the £30,000 salaries and stuff, letting people go on redundancies. When you think that Casemiro's on 350 grand a week, and Anthony, obviously, you've just sent out. Is he on loan, Anthony?
Yeah, he is on loan.
Yeah.
But that's £200,000 a week he was on at United, and hardly playing in the end. I mean, have you considered making United players redundant? I mean,
yeah.
Just a thought.
I'd love to be able to do that. I don't understand why we can't do that. Like, if they can make members of staff redundant, can't they make players redundant? That's genius.
Yeah.
We should do that. I would 100%. I would 100% follow that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would solve your PSR issues, Joey. You can get rid of Casemiro, and then you're saving how many jobs there? 350 grand a week.
That's almost my salary for this podcast.
Exactly. I mean, that's not bad, is it?
Yeah, I mean...
So there you go. Food for thought for the United owners there.
I'd also like to bring up something else. You'll like this, James, because it's about Arsenal.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I heard last week probably the best footballing chant that I've heard in a long, long time.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
Yeah, you know, and everyone else knows. So this was the first game against Newcastle, Arsenal against Newcastle in the League Cup, when Arsenal lost 2-0, just to remind you.
Nothing to see here.
Mikel Arteta decided to, after the game, blame it on the ball. Yeah, it was the ball's fault, wasn't it?
I don't know what he was doing with this one.
Yeah, it was silly, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And then in the second, what's it called? The second leg of the game, in the second leg of the Cup, Arsenal lost 2-0 again. Do you remember what the chant is?
No.
You don't? Oh, well, I'll remind you then. It must be the ball. It must be the ball. Mikel Arteta. It must be the ball. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, that is great.
To you two. Take the joy.
That is...
It's one of the best chants. Yeah.
The football fans, I know that they get a lot of criticism, and sometimes rightly so. We fixed in recent episodes, toxicity and discrimination and things like that. But in terms of there's a lot of good fans out there, and some of the chants they come out with.
Oh, they're brilliant.
We've got the best chants in sport, I think.
Yeah.
I do watch some other sports. I know you don't think I do, but the chants in snooker, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But
the American chant. Oh.
I know you've said this before, haven't you? Like the chants they have in America, like USA or whatever it is.
I believe that we will win.
Is that
one of my favourite ones? They don't even know that they'll win. I believe that we'll win.
Yeah. It's almost like a hope, but whereas we almost like I know that in that case they're having a go at the opposition manager, but there's a lot of the time they're not afraid to have a go at themselves.
The bants. Yeah. To be honest though, I will say something good about Arteta. This is a theory of mine. I think Mikel Arteta was very close and should have got a knighthood.
Right.
Because when he was a player, he was actually asked if he wanted to change his citizenship to get a British citizenship. He lived here long enough, and he never got picked for Spain, so they asked if he wanted to, and he said no. But had he done that, he could have got a knighthood, because he came runner-up of the Premier League twice. And by the laws of Gareth Southgate, now apparently coming runner-up twice means you get a knighthood.
You're on form so far today. This is going well, this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, so
pat yourself on the back for that.
Sir Mikel Arteta. You could have had a knight of the realm as an Arsenal manager.
Anyway, should we get on with the So today then, chaps, as I mentioned earlier, probably our biggest challenge. We're going to be looking to fix Tottenham Hotspur, or Spurs as some people call them.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we start here, man? It's just...
I feel like the one thing we need to make sure we do right off the bat, James, is remove our bias. At the moment, obviously...
You know who you're talking to.
Well, I just want to point this out, only because I'm going to bring myself into it as well. Because obviously James has his allegiances to another part of North London, so obviously there's going to be some conflict in his opinions here. Obviously, United are in a relegation battle with Spurs, so I also have my own issues that I will have to put to one side and just pretend that we're not fighting to stay in the Premier League with this team. That's
true. And once again, I, as the world-renowned, least biased football fan in the world, will have to mitigate this situation. I'll have to keep a check on both of you and make sure you're not being overly biased about it.
James, should we one inch of bias from my side? I'm just saying, not 1 inch.
Okay. Okay.
With Spurs, though.
Yeah,
because this is the episode.
No, exactly. It's just Spurs. What are the biggest problems then with Spurs, do we think?
Well, firstly, I think
we need
to talk about where they are. Well, they are Spurs, but we need to talk about where they are.
North London, I think.
Exactly. That's exactly where they are.
I'm glad we got that one through. Yeah, right, what's next, Dan?
Yeah, tick. I'm talking about the state they are, because they have the same points as Everton. And we are on an upsurge.
Don't rub it in, Cess. I mean,
I'm just
they're
saying.
low enough.
We are a team that's been known to be towards the bottom, just above the relegation zone for the last 3-4 years, and we've got the same points as them. How low is that? We're on upsurge. We're going to be past them soon.
Stop smiling. You're like kicking an injured dog. That's what you're doing. They're already hurting. All right, just leave them. See the bias here, Dan.
What do you think?
I'm defending Spurs.
Do you think?
I'm saying that Everton are so bad that Spurs are basically at level points with Everton. How am I being biased towards Everton?
It sounds like. Do you know what it sounds like? Do you know when we talk about fixes and how managers should do things, and we always end up hearing about how Arteta does things this way, therefore this is how things should be done to fix it. It sounds like you're doing the same thing from an Everton perspective for Spurs right now.
This is how not to do it.
Talking about Spurs, lads.
Yeah.
Sorry, Spurs fans. They're eagerly sat there waiting for us to fix their club, and you're selfishly biased.
So where we're
talking about Everton.
Just
because you want to talk about Everton, we'll make an episode about Everton. Just stop talking about Everton all the time.
It's been 2 seasons, and we still haven't done an episode on Everton. And I'm the biased one, apparently.
What we're saying is that Tottenham need David Moyes.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
So if you've enjoyed this episode...
I will say, kind of a problem, but not a problem. I think a lot of people are overreacting slightly when it comes to what's going on with Spurs, because they are doing very badly, but they've been doing badly recently. It's not as though, like with Everton, they've been towards the bottom for so long.
Yeah.
They've clearly shown a regression. They're going down. However, a couple of years back, they were, actually the first season with Ange, they finished 8th or something, but that was better than the season before. They lost Kane that season, and people were saying, well, where are they going to get the goals? But they did better than when they had Kane. So I think people are overreacting slightly.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are still a well-run club in the background. It's not like with United. I don't mean to rub salt in the wound there, Dan, but with United, everything in the background is falling apart, with the stadium, with the way it's being run, with the finances, with the connection with the fans, and everything is just falling to bits. And the what's going on the pitch is horrendous. With Spurs, everything in the background is actually very good. And they've got the best stadium one of the best stadiums in the world, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, completely agree. And it came out, and it was announced back at just before the start of this season. So it was August 2024. Mm-hmm. And the Fair Game Index, so they ranked all of the clubs on how well run they are.
Right.
Based on their financial situation, the foundation, the club, the reserve, all that kind of stuff. Loads of different features. And Spurs were ranked in first place with a combined score of 68.2 out of 100, which I can give you some context and compare that if you like. But basically, that's based on they had a high score in equality, which, whatever that means. Man United came second, though, so I'm not sure if that undermines some of the findings.
This is clearly not a very good measure, is it now?
Yeah, let's get rid of that one right away. Don't worry, Dan, I'll edit this out. It's fine.
So it's been reported, this was a Guardian talking about it. So it works with 34 English Football League and non-league clubs, and it showed 5 Premier League teams to be among the top 10 best run in the country. It analysed data from clubs across the top 7 divisions. Spurs were ranked first, as I said. As a club, it prides itself on good governance, it's well governed, and we're talking about the finances, you know.
Yeah.
Although Spurs fans mention Daniel Levy, you hear that a lot, and we're going to get into that. But actually, he runs the club like a business, and financially, they're quite stable. As you mentioned, they've got a great stadium, the foundation there, the fan engagement, and delivering for the local communities are also considered within the rankings. So actually, behind the scenes, I mean, you look at the state of Man United, and going to add Everton into that as well. There's a lot of things that need to go on behind the scenes. With Spurs, it's all kind of on the pitch, really, isn't it? It's all kind of like, well, at least front of house stuff more than anything.
I'm pretty sure that I literally just said that a few minutes ago. I'm pretty sure I said that, didn't I, Dan?
Is
that just another James stealing my...
Yeah, that was exactly your point.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So thanks for supporting my opinion. So for me, I want to go into their tactics shortly. So I think it's sort of there's 3 main issues, aren't there, in terms of. So before we started recording the episode, we were having a little chat in the green room. Yeah. And I was saying I'd need to talk about Big Ange and his tactics and what's going on there. So we'll do that. And I'll completely unbiased going to talk about that. So then you said there's obviously a problem right now with results.
Yeah.
And that's partly linked to the injury situation, isn't there? Mm-hmm. So there's no getting away from the injury problem, and we need to get into kind of like, what is causing this? Is it a bit like maybe what Arsenal are suffering from at the moment? We've got quite a few injuries.
Can I just interject at this point about the injuries? No. It's just very interesting because do you remember last season when I was very defensive of Ten Hag over all of the injuries we had? And everyone, and it was brushed aside, and it's like injury shouldn't be a thing. The club should be big enough to deal with it. And now it's happening to other managers. It's now all of a sudden a valid excuse.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I feel very sorry, actually, for Tottenham because apparently they've got 11 first-team players out. Now, I don't know about you, but
what team are they fielding?
Yeah, to have no regular player on the pitch, apparently. I've never understood this. Last season, what was it? Newcastle had 13 first players out. First team players.
How does that work? Yeah, you're only allowed 11 first teamers. I mean, Son's playing. Son's the club captain.
Son's been playing for a while. Yeah.
So is he not in the first team then?
Yeah.
What's going? I mean,
so weird.
Some people, I mean, we need to fix that as much as anything.
Yeah, that is true.
But now, though, we wanted to get an insight from an actual Spurs fan.
Yeah.
So we've
rare breed.
Yeah. We've scoured the earth to try and find one.
Yeah.
And he wished to stay anonymous. So we've looked close to home. We've looked in the West Country, and we found a voice actor to play to voice over his interview for us, so he can remain anonymous.
Give it a good old West Country twang.
And we thought we'd give him a kind of normal name like Callum.
Yeah.
So here's Callum earlier this week. Right, so first of all, hello. I've got Callum with me, the Spurs fan. How are you?
I'm doing great, James. Glad to finally get on the podcast. It's been a long time in the making, as we were just saying. It's great to be here. Great to be on it.
Oh, this is brilliant. Right, so first and probably most important question: why would anyone want to support Spurs?
Good question. I do ask myself that a lot. Well, I just think it's a different club. I think, to be fair, it's got its trials and tribulations, and it's got its ups and downs. And I think when we're up, we are up, and when we're down, you are down. Not,
yeah.
Then it's just that sort of cycle of football.
Right, I've got a really tough question then. So, why are Spurs considered a Big Six club?
No, I was thinking about this last night actually.
I'm completely unbiased, by the way. I have no intention to humiliate you as a Spurs fan or anything, as you know.
I think mostly it comes down to Poch, I would say. I think under that scheme, and under that coaching period, I think he did wonders for the club. And I did see something earlier saying about how Arsenal spend like 100 million more sort of in wages and general spending.
Yeah.
And that does pay off. So it's like now, are Spurs really a Big Six team? Probably not, based on our performances as of late.
How do you feel Spurs' season's going then, at the moment?
Obviously we're on a downturn at the minute. Hopefully sort of over the coming weeks we start getting players back nearing the end of the season, start getting a few more results in, just to get us a bit more up. I think we're not going to get anything out of this season. I think that's a given.
Whoa. Hold on. Big Ange, he said he wins stuff in his second season, right? Yeah. Shall I get the quote up? I got it here somewhere if you want. In my second season, he even corrected himself. Usually in my second season I win things. I'll correct myself. I don't usually win things. I always win things in my second year. Well, that means then you're going to be on course for either Europa League or Premier League. Right.
Well, Europa League still has potential.
Yeah, plausible. It's got to be embarrassing though. You're near Everton. That's pretty low.
Well, last week we were only one place above the relegation zone. Obviously, you're not going to go into it just because of the way the points work, but it's not a great sight to see.
Well, yeah. Oh, that's to be below Everton. I mean, that's really poor.
Now, I did want to bring up a very good point he made.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, it's brilliant. He said, when we're up, we're up. And when we're down, we're down. Now, that is a brilliant take.
I mean, it's correct, isn't it?
It is absolutely right,
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
I think the gist of what I was kind of taking for what Callum was saying there was that Spurs, when we have our down times, they are quite down, and we're just going through that at the moment is kind of what he seemed to be feeling. And it does seem like, you see it on social media as well, a lot of the fans are feeling like, it's Daniel Levy, and that Callum mentioned that in the interview. And it seems like there is this kind of feeling that they're being let down a bit by the running of the club, despite the fact that Spurs are seen as one of the best run clubs in some measures. The fans don't necessarily feel that.
Yeah, and I actually don't feel any sympathy there. I think they're actually wrong, because they've had good investment. Callum was mentioning about how the investment is wrong, but I don't think so. They've spent enough money on good players. They've spent 40 million on Maddison. They spent, I can't remember how much for the players. Even Ange, Ange was given a fair bit of money. The whole investment thing is, I don't know, it's quite short-sighted. It's getting rid of Daniel Levy, I don't think is going to be better for them, because it's not about pumping money in. Dan and I know all too well that money, it doesn't mean success.
No,
we have done literally the opposite. So I don't think they realise how good they've had it with the way that the club is being run.
So we want to dispel that myth, really, then, don't we? It's not necessarily the amount of money spent.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is, I know, you're saying in terms of they're a well-run club and everything, I do think that Daniel Levy has kind of dug a hole for himself a little bit, in the sense that it's almost like he's wanted to have been portrayed as this real hard-nosed, firm kind of businessman, very difficult to do business with. He's done some good business in some selling and things like that, but you look at the end of the January transfer window with that attempt to sign, was it Gay? Right at the end of the transfer window, and apparently there was even a little rumour about maybe coming for Garnacho after. Obviously, he made it very difficult for us to buy Harry Kane a couple of years ago. Like, he has isolated himself a little bit, and that portrayal of that character that he has is probably a part of the problem.
It could be, but I think that's a very minor thing. If all the clubs had all their players back from injury, I would say Spurs' squad, not just first team, but their squad would actually be at least in the top six, if not higher. I would say their first team is definitely worthy of top six. They've got great players. United, you could say they've spent way more money and way higher salaries, but I don't think they've got a squad worthy of a top six or big six team.
Well, it's funny that during this episode, Dan's talked about...
Sorry, Dan, for constantly having a go at United, by the way.
It's fine.
No, but it's interesting you mentioned that, because actually...
Yeah.
I'm somewhere in between what you're both saying there, because Dan talked about his dislike for the PR at United and how it's kind of almost fake in a sense. It's just making the club look better than they are. And what Dan just mentioned there about Daniel Levy, maybe he does the opposite. There's just a lack of PR. They're almost too honest. I mean, Daniel Levy has actually... So they are a well-run club financially. And when people say, oh, he's not doing enough, I mean, as you were saying earlier, Cess, Big Ange, he has actually been supported by Daniel Levy.
Yeah. The players that Ange got, they're good players. And they are pretty much all first teamers. It's just they're injured.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily... it's quite easy just to blame the owners if you're having a bad time.
Yeah.
But I think it's justified when United and Everton fans were talking about the owners because they were investing in the wrong things. Whereas Spurs, I don't think, are investing in the wrong things. And if anything, they're constantly being well run.
Yes. So the business model, financially, they're buying players that they can actually afford, and there's some good players there, as we just said. And so Big Ange has been supported, and Daniel Levy's keeping the club running well financially. So I don't think that's the problem. From what everything we've just been talking about there, I think it's fair to say that's a bit of a myth, really, that those are the main issues.
Yeah.
So if it's not the players on that front, then what's going on with the injuries side of things? So we mentioned there about a lot of these players who are signing are now injured.
Yeah.
And the fans are looking for someone to blame. But actually, what's going on there? Why are there so many injuries? Is it going back to the old argument, Cess, that there's too many games?
The too many
I see
games.
the vein on your head, on your forehead just pop out there. The too many games argument.
Yeah. I don't like to say the too many games thing. However, there has to be something to do with the way they're playing. And we'll look at it in tactics, I suppose. But I think the way that Ange plays is very much running to their limit, really. But also, it comes in waves, doesn't it? United had a big problem last season. Newcastle, Wolves. There's just been certain clubs had a load of injuries just all in one go. And it's just kind of pot luck, I suppose, for a lot of teams.
Well, let's have a little look at the tactics then, shall we? So there's a few... I mean, we're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to injuries having a big impact. When the defence isn't there, the stats show they concede a lot more goals when their main two defenders aren't there, and you'd expect to see that. There's a few key things, though, that kind of... I'm looking at one of the Spurs forums where there's one of what they're called, analysts have kind of looked at some of the stats and things like that. And although it's a very confusing piece where you kind of look at the high line and all that, you actually realise they don't play the highest line in the league and stuff like that. But one thing is, they seem to be losing a lot of goals when chasing games. So that when they concede a goal, they're opening up and they might be a bit too extravagant, trying to push so far to try and get a goal, and they're getting caught on the break, for example.
Yeah.
The key kind of conclusions we're sort of seeing are Spurs play a kind of standard high line compared to other top sides, but when their defence is available, they actually do quite well. There's a huge drop-off when their defence and their goalkeeper hasn't been around, and we've seen that. The goalkeeper last weekend conceded a really silly goal in the FA Cup, for example.
Yeah.
So Spurs are being largely hit on the break when chasing goals, and they're probably struggling in that kind of transition role. It kind of seems that it's quite often they're conceding possession, but then they're quite slow at recovering.
It's the recovery, which is the main bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's especially in the Premier League where everything's such a fast pace, and because the players are so open and expansive, the way they're running from one end to the other, the players seem quite tired when they're recovering. I think the approach, until they get their first team players back, they need to actually look to play a bit more of a conservative style playing game.
Yeah.
Maybe drop a little bit deeper, drop the line a little bit, but it means that the forward players aren't just up and down and up and down. You can actually, the whole team drops a little bit more, so you kind of defend as a unit.
I think one thing that Spurs do need to concentrate on is to accept that because they have to change their style, they have to accept almost like a relegation team's ethos. You know, with Everton, we after Lampard, we kind of accepted, because we're on a free fall, we have to sit back. It didn't matter what. Yeah, didn't matter. It didn't matter what players we had. We sat back, and I think to an extent, Spurs kind of have to do that. They're in free fall. We can see their free fall. Yeah. they're falling to the relegation zone right now. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I think accepting that, and it doesn't matter what players you have. Any team can sit back a little bit, and I think they do need to adopt that just for a bit until they can get the players back.
Yeah, these players they're playing are not their first 11 players, all that kind of thing, or at least a number of them aren't.
Yeah.
So you need to accept this is not your. Is that really a Premier League side in terms of the standard? You need to see it like I think you're absolutely right there in terms of seeing it more as you're a lower league side now in terms of at least lower Prem at the very at the most kind of thing. So
one defensive edge, I suppose, would be that they don't really have the players to play the low block. Like, they don't have good defensive centre-backs. They don't have a solid back line at the minute. So if they played a low block, I don't think that would help. I think teams would still play through them and they'd concede goals.
Possibly, yeah.
They do need a threat on the break. With Kulusevski, his pace on the break, I think he's a key option. But I think when you've got Archie Gray and... who's the other centre-back? I don't even know his name, actually. I've got it here.
But then again, is it actually going to be much worse? They're losing games right now, so if they try a low block, then they can't lose even more.
Well, I think they're midfield helping the defence handle.
That's true.
Because if they're not sitting back in a lower block, at least anyway. So that at centre backs they had Kevin Danso and Archie Gray, two centre backs, all right. And they need the experience they have is minimal when it comes to Premier League level. They need help. They need the team in front of them to help them with their shape. If you're pushing forward and attacking, you're relying on them to clear it all up. If you're Van Dijk, you can do that. You can leave Van Dijk back there to read the situation, marshal the defence. Yeah. They lack the experience. So I think, whether it's a completely low block, I'm not necessarily saying that, but they need to be a little less adventurous in their attacking, shall I say. So the final area we want to look at, and this seems to be, it links to the other ones, but at the same time, it's something very much associated with Spurs. And this is a systemic problem with Spurs. It's like a cultural problem. So yes, injuries, tactics, that can lead to you not getting results. But there's something even bigger underpinning it. Spursiness.
That is very true. And this is actually something that I think needs to be fixed the most. Because everything else, it's kind of on the surface. It's like a wound that's, only skin deep. All the injuries and stuff, that's, that... injuries can happen. Yeah. If they have no injuries, then that problem's gone. But the Spursiness is actually something that's within them. You know?
It's a cultural problem. It's something like in their soul, isn't it? The very soul. The Oxford English Dictionary defines Spursy to describe Tottenham Hotspur Football Club supporters and players. The term can be considered offensive or derogatory. So we apologise. We're using it for purely academic purposes.
Yeah, with a little bit of derogatory. I won't lie.
Well, that's just your bias. But so the definition the definition is Spursy is a term used to describe when a team has the potential to succeed, but ultimately fails to do so. It can also mean to fall short of victory when it seems within reach.
Yeah, it's very much the case. You remember in the 2015-16 league season when Leicester, yeah, that was it. Leicester won it, and Spurs came third in a 2-horse race.
Yeah, they clutched defeat from the jaws of victory, didn't they?
Yeah, and right now, I've said before, they're running to the relegation zone. They are doing everything they can to be in the relegation zone.
I said this before. I think they'll Spurs relegation though. I think they'll just miss relegation.
We can't even get relegated properly.
They'll like
they
get
fail
to
at relegation.
Yeah, like on the last day or something, they'll just accidentally get some last minute winner or something, and then they'll just avoid the relegation because they can't even do that right.
Yeah, exactly. Because to be honest, the entire time that I've watched football, aside from the last few years, Spurs has been one of those teams. They usually have great players. It's fun to watch them play. They're usually attacking. They have a lot of English players as well. They score a lot. And even if you're an Arsenal fan and you hate Spurs or whatever, you can't deny the fact that they were a good team. And even though they only won, the 2008 League Cup, as far as I know, in our lifetime, they were a team that they could challenge at the very least. And they would be in the top 4 quite often. And it was fun. But the thing is, there's just something that couldn't get them over the line.
And we believe there is a mentality, sort of cultural problem there. When maybe the pressure tots up even higher than just the final, your final of a cup pressure is there anyway. But it seems like the pressure is even greater when you've got this feeling amongst the fans, the rival fans as well. They're all expecting Tottenham not to do it. And that's got to add an extra weight, isn't it?
We said before with Real Madrid, We don't know how, but Real Madrid in Europe, they keep doing it. Is it something like as soon as you put the shirt on, does it
lifts
make...
lifts the players, gives you an extra confidence? I think that's the case. I really do believe there's something. The kind of confidence is a big thing in football. You can't measure it, but we've played it, we've watched it for decades. We know that if you're confident, you score goals that you don't usually score.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. And if you wear the Real Madrid shirt, for example, they won the Champions League a few times where they haven't been the best team.
Yeah.
But history remember them as the best team or whatever because they won the Champions League.
Yeah.
You know?
The only time, I think actually there is one time that you could actually measure confidence, and that's called Fernando Torres.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Fernando Torres effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could see the difference between a confident Liverpool player and a Chelsea player who it's unrecognisable.
Chelsea have done that to a few players, though, over the years.
So then, just a little dig at Chelsea there. Like
just plan that one there, yeah.
So then with Spurs' recruitment then, right? So because they've, like you were saying earlier on, Cess, like they've recruited well. They've spent a lot of money on decent players. So
I mean, they signed Brennan Johnson, so they haven't recruited that well.
Well, he's not bad.
Sorry, non-biased, sorry.
He's not a bad squad player, is he? He's not bad.
I think he's one of the first teamers, but okay.
Either way.
Sorry.
Either way. But my point is, when they recruit these people, do you think that they accidentally recruit Spurs people, or do you think they arrive and adopt the Spurs mentality? Like
that's what I think they do in the same way that I don't think United buy bad players, but I think United somehow crush these players to the point that when they leave, they start doing well.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to bore you guys, but there is a concept called organisational culture, which comes up in the areas. I know, but it comes up in some of the concepts that I teach, and there is research and the suggestion that exactly what you're saying is true. That you can join a business and even your own personal morals and beliefs can be influenced by the organisation you're in. You might behave differently in work than you do in your normal life, for example. And that, you might apply that to Anthony. He's left United and now he's suddenly got the new kind of confident. He scored a couple of goals. He's got some man of the match performances. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, but you also have to recruit personalities, don't you? So it's not about just ability. Yep. You recruit personalities, and if you recruit enough of the right personality, then surely that would not... Like, for me personally, United have recruited a lot of bad personalities. I don't think we've done our homework on players and got the right players in. We've had a lot of bad personalities around the club for a long time. I honestly don't think it's... I know the club is really badly run and everyone wants to point the finger at the Glazers, but I think that just makes the players less accountable than they should be.
And just to kind of put the final nail in the coffin of our points here, I've got some...
Why is it a coffin?
Well, Spurs, isn't it? So I've got some statistics for you.
How do you manage to make episodes boring? I don't understand.
Well,
what is
this? The first one's from Domino's Pizza.
Okay. So
Domino's Pizza have tweeted, and this was not just now, so more has happened since then. Right. So they've tweeted, we've sold 78,427,391 pizzas since Spurs last won a trophy. Bearing in mind that we had a Domino's Pizza tonight.
Yeah.
So that's at least 392 at the end of that.
Yeah.
And Specsavers, since Tottenham's last trophy, we've given... it's a number bigger than I can tell. So
okay.
43 gazillion, I'm going to say.
Gazillion, yeah.
324 823 013 324 734 ITES. How many is that?
Wow.
It's like 43,324 billion or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but then again, you'd have to halve that because everyone's got two eyes.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Fair. Oh, yeah. Should we get on to the fixes then, guys?
Let's do it.
So for the fixes then, guys, should we first hear what our local Spurs fan felt, like what he would do and what he feels the main fixes are?
That's a good idea.
That sounds good.
Right, if there's one thing you would change then, Callum, what would it be?
I think watching Spurs over the past few weeks, there's only so much that can be put on Ange. I think it seems to be a recurring theme in football that if you're not winning, it's always on the manager. And like obviously, you look at Spurs, the amount of injuries we have is it's not as such an excuse because it's just the way it is.
It's facts. It's true. Yeah, no doubt the injuries are an impact.
But I just think there's only so much you can put on the manager. But I think when you take a step back and look at bigger picture, I think is maybe Daniel Levy the issue, because you look at
fans are saying that, aren't they?
Yeah, he runs the club as a business as it should be run, but if you run it too much as a business, then you're never going to win things. So I think if you put as much time into being able to win things and putting the money where it needs to be, and the time and the investment, then you obviously get the repayment of that.
One final question then. So with all these injuries that you've referred to, shouldn't Big Ange think about adapting the team and the tactics? I know he's come out and it's a bit of a meme now. It's the way we are and that's how we do things, but it's the way we are, mate, or whatever it is he says. But what is it like? What would you, if you're in Ange's shoes, would you adapt your style until you get the players back, or would you stick with it because it's a philosophy and that's what you want to build going forward?
I think there does need to be change. I think that the players that we've been playing, a lot of the younger ones, don't have the experience to be able to play
that risky football.
That sort of fast-paced, sort of attacky kind of Ange football.
Would you keep him then? I suppose I've got one more question. Would you keep him?
I would. I know that because it's like I said already, it's always put on the manager, and if you get rid of a manager, it's always the big question: who do you bring in? And at the minute, there's not really anyone out there, I say, that is good for what we've got, and I think it's just going to put off and procrastinate any actual development.
Finish as high as you can this season and then start afresh next season. Keep the same philosophy and all that.
100%.
So do you agree with Callum's thoughts there then? So he feels that the club's having, he kind of referred to the tactics there as well. Maybe Big Ange needs to adapt with all these injuries at the moment. Maybe he needs to sort of look at. So it's kind of good to hear a Spurs fan agree with the expert like me.
I'll tell you what Callum does make me feel. He makes me feel old.
That is so true. Yeah. When I was a kid, I grew up watching under Pochettino. Pochettino was a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was horrendous. Yeah, Callum is never coming on our show.
No, exactly. A bit of my soul left me then, I've got to say.
He is grounded. No, but it is actually good what he said, because it's true. Ange kind of does need to adapt to the players he's got, really. At the very least, you can't necessarily adapt to every player you've got, but you could adapt the tactics, like you said, so you can be, maybe you'd hold back rather than play the attacking style that he always played. So, yeah, I agree with that. I don't agree with what a lot of Spurs fans are saying, where they say they want to get rid of Ange, but there's no one else at the moment. Who else can we get? And I find that to be a bit of a lazy argument, I suppose, because what they're hoping for really is, a Pep or a Klopp or something, but that's not necessarily a guarantee for success. Look at Arne Slot. I didn't know who he was until he became a Liverpool manager, and look where they are. They're the best performing team at the moment in Europe. Ange, I never really knew who Ange was. There's so many teams that are succeeding with players with managers that we've never even heard of.
Yeah.
And, Maresco, for example, he was a championship manager before he got the Chelsea job, and Chelsea are now, fourth?
Yeah.
So I think
no one thought about Slot, did they, at Liverpool?
Yeah. Eddie Howe, for example, we never expected Eddie Howe to suddenly be managing a club that basically they're fighting for the top four for the last 3 years.
But that's it. If you actually look at all the top sides right now in the Premier League in terms of position, you've got Slot at Liverpool. No one really thought who was this guy? He wasn't one of the big names, as it were. No one really thought Arteta would be suited to Arsenal. A lot of Arsenal fans I saw said, this isn't right. He's not big enough for our club.
First managerial role, wasn't it?
Job. I was one of the what I think was a minority, basically, of saying, no, this is going to be something we need. Because we were linked with, what's the Juventus guy? Allegri? Yeah. We were linked with Allegri, Ancelotti, who went to Everton at the same period of time.
We made him who he is, remember?
You made him who he is, exactly.
And then you look at Nuno
at Forest.
Yeah.
A lot of these top sides, right? Or the top three sides in the Prem. Who's fourth, actually?
Chelsea. Maresca.
And it's Maresca. The top four sides in the Prem are all managers who you wouldn't have thought would be there. Yeah. So I completely agree with you on this one.
I think also, if you look at the track record of managers that they've had, they had Conte, they had Mourinho, they had the big names, and it didn't work. So
Yeah.
I do think
Very
though.
true as well, yeah.
I do think though, firing Mourinho before that final was one of the biggest mistakes in the history of that club, because
no, it wasn't. It was one of the best decisions ever, because we wouldn't have been able to carry on with the whole Spursy thing. Then.
Imagine if they won a trophy.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
that's
would
so
have
less
ruined it.
fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
bias, right? Not bias.
Well, because they would. I mean, you don't know these things. It's not guaranteed, but they would have had a much better chance of getting themselves a trophy then. And if they'd have just won a trophy then, that could have opened the door to all sorts now. And instead, it's just the Spursiness continues. You know,
and that's really it, isn't it? One of the key ways to get rid of this culture. So it's a bit of a tricky fix to actually say it in a sense, is they need to win a trophy. That will be a big step to getting rid of some of the kind of the skeletons in the closet. Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
You know,
that is a phrase.
That is a phrase.
Do you think
the skeletons in the closet? It kind of gets rid of that kind of looking over your shoulder, the weight on your shoulders.
Do you think if Ange...
I don't think skeleton in the closet is the right term there. That's just things that you're hiding, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's fine. We'll keep that in.
What's the phrase? Like there's something like haunting.
Is it blowing out the cobwebs or something? Like when you're a bit rusty and stuff?
No, that's not the right term, but it's fine. Yeah.
Carry on. Get the devil off your back or something? Is that one?
Devil off your shoulder? Yeah, all right, that's it.
So basically, once Ange makes the semi-final of the Europa, then they need to just lock Daniel Levy in a room somewhere so he doesn't sack him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or even, do you remember when Hugo Lloris said when they got to the Champions League final, before they actually played the final, Levy treated all the players to watches saying that they made it to the final.
Yeah.
And it sent a message to all the players that were not expected to be here.
Yeah, you've made it, guys.
Yeah, you've made it already. You haven't, and they hadn't even achieved it. And Hugo Lloris was kind of right to sort of say it undermined everything. It kind of completely kind of shot them down to sort of say that we're not expected to be here. We've overachieved already. And you don't want that going into a final. So that's part of the mentality. It's coming right from the top, the leadership of the club.
Yeah,
so
absolutely
although
is.
Levy's running it well as a business, as a leader, I don't think he's inspiring. Well, now it's time then, I think, for some fantasy football tips, lads. What do you reckon?
Is it yours?
I'm so glad that John's back.
John's back.
What?
Oh, yes.
John is back.
Oh, no.
Yes. Does that mean I'm not doing my tips anymore?
Oh, thank God.
You're no longer allowed to. Well, actually, you probably did help people by not listening to your tips.
All right then. In that case, here's John's juicy tips. Juicy.
Oh, I've really missed these juicy tips in my ears.
John's juicy tips.
Alright, thank you to James for all those juice-free tips while I was away, but I'm back and I'm thirsty for some juicy tips. So, here's some differentials for your team. In defence, it's Jurrien Timber. With so many injured attackers, it's time for Arsenal to double down on their defensive Stoke-like tactics, and the clean sheets are coming with 2 in the last 3 games, and Timber is the cheapest and least owned way to those points. In midfield, it's Dango Ouattara for Bournemouth. Bournemouth have the form and fixtures right now, and since Dango was unchained and sent up front, he has 4 goals and assists in his last 4 games, and he is less than 3% owned. And up front is a guy who's had a bigger transformation than the Incredible Hulk. It's Beto for Everton. A few weeks ago he looked Sunday League level, and now he looks like prime Didier Drogba. He's less than 5 million and 2% owned, so it's worth a bet on Beto. Juicy.
Thanks for that, John, and welcome back. Have you seen our league, guys? Our league's getting really interesting as we approach the final third of the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd just like to say, Salah, my triple captain, got me 87 points or something.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Because of the double game week. And if you triple captain him, he's carried you, he saved you actually, because you were slipping down the table.
I know.
We've got 2 new people join the league in the last week.
Nice.
Which is fantastic to see, so our league's getting ever bigger. What I should say is that Sam is still top, but our guru John is now back up into second, breathing down back. Sam's neck.
Yeah. Let's hope John takes him over, because I'm sick of Sam being at the top.
Yeah, and next season we can't have Sam's juicy tips.
No, we'll sack him. Sack him off, that's fine.
Yeah, we might have to just edit him out of the league or something. And if you'd like to join our league, the entry code is 8B8. E1L. And then you can compare your fantasy football knowledge against ours. I think that's it then, lads. We've saved another one. In this case, Spurs. Do you think we cracked it? Do you think we saved them?
Yes, but it's not good for me, because if they start doing well, then Everton won't be able to overtake them.
Oh, I mean, I'm not. You did actually put your bias aside to allow us to fix Spurs.
I always do. I don't have any bias in football. I keep telling you this.
That's fair play, Dan. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, I was very impressed.
I'm world renowned for this. I keep telling you guys.
Yes.
Everyone knows me.
Guinness are on their way.
It's on the way. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do give us a like and a follow. It really does make a massive difference for us. And it just remains for me to say, it's goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.